All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to our next and newest episode of the Beer and Skittles podcast. I do want to apologize to everybody for the hiatus we took after episode 4, but we are back and we will continue to be back on our regular weekly schedule. This week, we we know we've missed a lot, and instead of trying to backtrack and cover everything and catch you guys back up, it's too much, and I don't want to keep you guys here for 5 hours. So we're just going to talk about all of the biggest and newest shows that have hit streaming over the last month, I'd say.
Yeah, about over like the past month. I don't like I've been having to catch up. There's been so many great shows to come out. Today we are going to be touching on The Boys, Umbrella Academy, Miss Marvel, Obi-Wan, and Stranger Things, which is I know the talk of the entire world right now. Um, but I mean, with all these shows, I mean, I think they've all been pretty great. Um, I mean, Stranger Things was new level. The Boys was pushing the boundaries as they always do. Umbrella Academy kept you on the edge of your seat the entire time. I mean, there was just so many great shows, and I love that. I mean, 3 out of these 5 were superhero genre, and
Yep.
they're all incredibly different from each other. So we're going to get into a lot of comparing and contrasting there because each one of them are also from a different studio. We had Prime, Netflix, and Disney Plus coming out with superhero shows within like a week of each other or episodically running at the same time. So there's a lot to unpack in there and to see how all these different studios attack superheroes in TV now.
Yeah, and interesting to see how all of these shows came out within the same time frame, but which are the ones that we talked about the most? Which ones are we still talking about? Um, and it's going to be funny in comparison from the ones that were on Netflix dropped all at once versus the ones that were episodic and released weekly. Uh, which of those tend to drop off and not even be talked about in conversation? Um,
Yeah,
that order that
because
you gave is the order we will be going about. Um, so if anybody's not caught up, there we will be very spoiler heavy in these conversations. So if you're not caught up and you want to skip ahead because you don't want to hear about the finale of The Boys and you just want to hear about Umbrella Academy or Stranger Things, that's the order we're going in, just to keep everybody on the same page.
yep. So we're gonna jump right into The Boys, and we just got the finale for The Boys on Friday, and oh my god, did this season have so much in it that I thought I would never see on TV. Like in my entire
Yeah.
life, did I ever think
Yeah.
not even a streaming service would allow the things that Amazon has let them do?
It is crazy to me when The Boys first came out a couple of years ago. Every episode I'm watching it like, are you kidding me? Like, this is what's happening. You know, and like I was like, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And then the next episode would play, and I like caught myself. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like every episode they've one upped it, and I feel
Yeah.
like every season they've one upped it. Um, and like you said, I mean, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, on a premium network like HBO, Star, Showtime, yeah, they were able to do things you couldn't do on regular cable. And then streaming came out and it's like, oh, we can kind of push the boundary. This is like the closest I've ever seen to like, how is this on the air? How is this being allowed to be broadcast?
Oh yeah, it honestly almost makes no sense. I mean, like yeah, you brought up like Star, Showtime, all of those companies that premium access, and what they do there, I like they showed you a boob, but on
There was a
this
little more gory, but
one of
yeah,
the
no,
opening
this
scenes, one of the opening scenes for this season was a two naked men. One of them shrunk down, jumped in the other's urethra, and then
yes,
exploded inside of him.
because he had just done a bunch of coke and sneezed and grew, and it was like almost it's the scene everybody wanted Ant-Man to do to Thanos to kill him in Endgame.
Yeah.
And it was like, Yeah, Marvel's not going to do that, but the boys will.
Yeah, I think it's so funny. You get so much of that from the boys, where they do take like literal tropes and things that people say like in memes and stuff on the internet, and they just bring it to screen. Like, yeah, no, no, superheroes should do this. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't.
Yeah, why wouldn't we do that? And that's the opening scene to like the uh the premiere for season 3. That's the first scene
Yeah,
in season 3. Like so like jumping you right into this new season is that.
yeah,
And then
dude,
even
and
like
it's so funny too. That entire scene, like, it's grotesque, it's gory, but at the same time, you can't help. You're like, oh, and then you're laughing
you're
because
well, especially because Frenchie walks in and
yeah,
then Frenchie's like, he's trying to get in my ass. And it's so chaotic. And you're just like, what is happening right now? You're trying to make sense of it, and it's hilarious. Um, I think that helps lessen the blow of how like insane it is of what you're watching is
yeah.
the comedy behind it.
Well, and I think the great thing that the boys does is that they still push a great story,
Yeah,
because you can see it in like horror movies. I mean, there are ones that are just so grotesque and gory, and I love that. I love it as much as the next guy, but then it's not something that I want to watch all the time because it's just, well, then what else is there? Where's my substance? And they deliver on substance, um, which
yeah,
it's a big part. You can't just push boundary with no purpose. And they definitely have purpose to them. I mean, they have source material to go off of, and the writers, honestly, I mean, they stick to it a bit. The characters are pretty true, but they have been going off the book a lot. I know you know better than I do. I only read volumes 1 and 2, so
they
I know you know a
have
lot more than me.
they have gone off of they've stepped away a lot from the comic. I mean, essentially these characters are the same. Um, but even the changes they've made, and I get the changes they've made because you know people who've read the comics, if they already know the uh the twist, um, then really gonna you're not gonna fool people twice. You can't rewatch Fight Club for the first time. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, so changing that, but the characters are the same. Like Homelander's still the same person, and I think that's what helps. If you read the comic, whatever, you read this and you're like, oh yeah, these guys are still the same. Homelander's an ass. Soldier Boy is different in this. Soldier Boy was in the original comic. He was trying to join the Seven, um, and I like this storyline better in the show.
Oh, dude, and like we have talked about the newest addition to the cast, Jensen Ackles, which
Fantastic.
love Jensen Ackles. Supernatural is possibly my favorite show of all time. That's obviously what he is known for, playing Dean in Supernatural. Iconic role, cult following for him. Trying to think, was it 14 seasons of 22 episodes apiece at hour long? I mean, so he launched a show for his entire career and brought it to new heights. And we never really knew what he was going to do after that, after it ended. And we saw him in The Boys, and he killed it. He's not a one-trick pony. Um, he can do other things. He's not just the guy from Supernatural, and I love seeing him kill the role so much. I mean, just the tough, manly 1950, 60, that whole era of where he's supposed to be, and he brings it to the new age. And he's brutal. I mean, he is the first incarnation of Homelander, so he's not too far off.
Yeah, and I think you really get to see a different side of Jensen Ackles, like from what he's played on Supernatural. This guy, Soldier Boy, is just a menace. Um, but like not in the same way that Homelander is. Like in that finale, I love the scene where Homelander is telling him, "Oh yeah, we can be a family, and this is your grandson." He's like, "I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have raised you." He's like, "Yeah, yeah," because then maybe you wouldn't be such a pussy. And it was like, whoa, and you wouldn't be so weak and just attention starved. And Homelander's like, weak. like just can't even like put together what is happening. Um, but I think even like if you go back and watch Supernatural, like Jensen Ackles is great at telling someone off.
Oh yeah, I mean, I mean, there is similarities between Soldier Boy and Dean, and kind of just I'm the man, like I'm the man's
Yeah.
man, like that's
Yep.
me. Obviously, Dean's a good guy at the end of the day, and Soldier Boy usually is not. Um, but I mean, they pushed that character really well, and what I really loved actually was Butcher in this season and how they played
Mm,
off of the characters in his life in his past compared to the ones in his life now. So obviously he's comparing Soldier Boy to his dad, and
yep.
and then he's comparing Huey to his little brother, um, to his dad, abusive man's man. Just if you're gonna do this, there's no consequences, anything. You just do what you got to do. That was him, and that was Soldier Boy. And then his little brother, who was a lot more, lighthearted. He was much more, he wasn't hardened. He relied on Butcher for protection, and you get the same thing out of Huey. And you're starting to see changes in his characterization. I mean, little bits. Huey says he's like deep down
Deep
in a
down.
very dark hole, deep down in him,
Deep,
there is still
deep.
some good in him.
Yeah.
Uh, so I thought that was great. Just kind of tying it all together and using those two characters to further progress Butcher's story.
Yeah, and I think it works, this whole temp V thing. And um I know we had talked before the finale where it was like, wow, Butcher really, even after that big moment where he had the realization of, Huey is a spitting image of my brother and blah blah blah. And he still doesn't tell Huey about the temp V, but then the opening for the finale, he's knocking Huey out and locking him in a bathroom. And it's
Yeah,
like that's because Butcher, he doesn't talk. He's not that type of person.
yeah,
His way of doing it is to lock you in a bathroom so you can't be a part of the mission to save your life.
yeah. And I
Um,
think he also knew that where Huey's head was at was I'm going to do anything to. At the end of the day, it was I'm going to do anything that I can so I can save Starlight. I'm going to do
right.
whatever I need to do. And I don't think if Butcher went up to him and said you're going to die, then he's going to say, well,
That's what it's
then
whatever it takes.
so he knew he's like, I'm just gonna not give him the chance to even know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lock him in a bathroom. Uh,
Yeah. I
so that
think
that was great.
I think this season too, all of the characters were so good. Um, I loved MM's storyline this season, like him and Soldier Boy, and just and it put him on course, to collide with Butcher over it because Butcher's like, we need to use him.
Oh yeah,
And
we get the separation between them. I mean, you get uh Butcher, Soldier Boy, Huey against Starlight at certain points, and then Frenchie obviously joins Starlight and as well. So it's like, well, like what are we doing here? We're supposed to be on the same side. So you see these people that have been best friends for as long as we've known them on the show and longer than that, and they're just pit against each other because they have different ways of trying to get the same goal.
right. And even like Frenchie's storyline with um Kimiko and just all of
That I loved Kimiko this season.
she was
I
so good. And I felt her pain, even like, when she decided, hey, I need the compound V. I need to get my powers back
Yeah,
because I need to protect Frenchie, you know? And that realization for her of I'm still the same person with or without the V.
yeah,
I just can't get shot now.
yeah. I love. I really love kind of what they're doing with her character, relating her a lot through like pop culture and stuff, especially kind of like older pop culture.
The
Because
musical numbers were always like they always threw me off, and I was like, "Is she really singing right now? Is this really
yeah, no,
happening?"
for a second I was like, she can. Well, like obviously, like I knew it didn't sound like she couldn't really like sing like that. But so I knew there was something going on there, but I know I loved every second of it. I mean, I think they did her character really well this season. Again, they brought in all like that last scene with her fighting the guards while Frenchie is trying to remake the gas. And she just
And she just puts in the AirPods to
puts in the AirPods, and you see her always wanting to dance, and she always wants to watch all these old movies and musicals and all this, and it brings a lot of character to her character that I feel like we haven't seen before, because before she was just the lost girl that was brought into this whole human trafficking ring, and then like it was just her trying to recover from that. But now we see like she has like this personality, there's things she wants to do, there's things she loves and all this stuff. So I loved Kamiko this season.
she's great. All of them are great. All of the actors in the cast are so good. Like nobody was really. It's not like anybody lagged behind or anybody was like holding it back from everybody in the boys to what's left of the seven. Um, Even somebody like Black Noir, who doesn't even talk, was so good this season, and I loved his character. Um, Even without one of my favorite scenes in the whole season was him walking away from Homelander into the elevator to cut out his chip.
Yeah,
And he did.
had
There
me
was no
tripping.
words, no
No,
words spoken. He
he
just
just handed it to the girl.
and is gone. Um, but also one of the biggest shocks for me was at the end when Homelander kills Noir.
Yeah, that was I really actually didn't see it coming, because for some reason I don't think we really saw it in previous seasons, but Noir, but he just had some kind of trust in Noir, probably because he Noir can't talk, which we found out the reason why Noir. I thought he just didn't talk. Now we know why he actually can't talk.
Right.
Um, but yeah, just because I guess he couldn't talk, Homelander being the psycho and being so conceited that he just kind of made up everything that he was saying in his own head. Just like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just venting to Noir. This is what he would say. So then you got to see like, oh, he actually trusted Noir more than anybody. Uh,
So I will say I really loved Noir scenes this season too, especially when we get him by himself in that like Chuck E. Cheese uh, with all the animated characters and everything. It was like all of a sudden we're in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
yeah, that got me for a second, because I didn't know. I mean, it's the boys. You never know what's real and what's like not, because everything in there is crazy. So it's like, they have animated people in this world. Like, what's going on? Obviously, apparently, Noir is just crazy. Um,
But it makes sense. He has a head injury. We got that flashback scene. And then in that episode where the animated characters play through what happened when the Russians invaded,
yeah,
his head split open and it's still that way. Like he's still got this serious head injury. So him being a little bit crazy makes sense. And
oh
why he
yeah.
doesn't talk makes
Well, you
sense.
saw like Soldier Boy fried his throat in his entire face.
Yeah. But it's crazy though that like Homelander is so detached that Noir not telling him that Soldier Boy is biologically his dad. He killed him for it. Like that's insane. And the scene that followed, Homelander this whole season has been on a power trip.
Yeah,
The scene that followed where he tells the Deep to go kill the VP, where he, tells him, "Oh, Noir was my best friend, and I killed him. You guys
yeah,
ain't shit."
yeah,
And then tells Ashley to take off her wig, which poor Ashley. I
yeah,
I loved and hated her this whole season because there are moments just like you're such like so annoying of just trying to power trip as well, but at the same time terrified of Homelander and ripping her hair out. Wasn't expecting her to be wearing a full wig.
nah, didn't expect that. And then, but I guess we're gonna see a better side of her in the next season. You have that ending scene where they show Maeve is alive. Everybody thinks Maeve is dead. She has on
And
camera
she
that
deletes it.
Maeve is. Yeah, she deletes it. So I think we're definitely gonna see uh, but a different side of her come next season. Maybe she'll end up helping the boys. Who
Yeah, we'll
knows?
see. I mean, I don't know if her fear of Homelander is enough to make her help the boys, But it was nice to see that moment where she, deleted the footage for Maeve. I was glad they didn't kill Soldier Boy. I don't know that we'll see him come back.
Yeah, no, they put him back on ice. So I don't know if we'll see him come back, but it was cool. It's cool that he's still around because it's hope that we might see him again.
Yeah. And overall, it's such a crazy season. I mean, episode 6 tackled Hero-gasm. Very different from the way it was done in the comic, but still an insane episode.
Yeah, that might be the most insane episode they've ever done. I mean, he comes to the door and there's just a giant
love sausage.
Freaking
Yeah.
love sausage. Just tapping MM on the shoulder with his love sausage.
Yeah, absolutely insane. And then even, MM has such high OCD and he's like a germaphobe and everything. And then he opens the door and just gets splattered.
Yeah.
And Starlight's just, he's like, I need a bathroom now. Like you could tell he was ready to lose it.
Yeah.
But that episode 2 was great because then you get that fight with Homelander and Soldier Boy. That it was such a good episode, regardless. And I think that's the other thing, like you had mentioned, this show isn't just about the goriness or the outlandish things that, like, how far can we push the envelope and put on TV and get people to see and make their jaws drop. There's such good writing in this. Stan Edgar is one of my favorite characters from the season. And I loved the scene after his daughter, like, basically, runs him out to dry and leaves him hanging. He's no longer the CEO. And Homelander thinks he's like, oh, yeah, I'm taking over. I'm taking your job, whatever. And he's like, doesn't matter. Now it's just you. There's no one to protect you. No one to clean up your messes. You're not a god. You're just bad product. And walks out and leaves Homelander, like, dumbfounded because he's just a man. Like, Stan doesn't have any powers, and he always leaves Homelander feeling small and weak.
And I think a great thing with that came after that, there's a scene that I really loved. Homelander in the mirror, talking to himself. They're not just talking to himself like a normal person might, just straight two personalities.
Yeah, I think this show also plays so much on taking moments from comic books that we know and love and, like, other things and subverting them and corrupting them. And, like, I don't know if you remember, there's a very famous comic panel of Superman stopping this girl from jumping off a building and saving her. And then you get that in this season, but instead it's Homelander telling her, jump, get ahead. I don't want to anymore. It wasn't a question. Do it.
Jump. Yeah.
And, like, I think it also goes to show, listen, Homelander is a great written character. He's a great villain. He's written really, really well. There's a problem if you love Homelander, though. In real life, if you love Homelander and agree with Homelander, that's the problem, and you're part of the problem. And I think that's what the show is also trying to get people to see. At the finale, you get that ending with all the people with the Stormfront sign still, which is funny to me that everybody's, like, ready to support the Nazi superhero, but not Soldier Boy, who was abducted by Russians. Like, heaven for, like, no, those are, one's wrong and one's right, and I don't understand it. But when Homelander kills that guy for throwing the thing at Ryan, and then he's like, oh shit, I fucked up, this is not it, and then
MM's daughter's stepdad, MM's ex-wife's husband,
he starts cheering, and it's like, and then everybody's cheering, and they're Homelander and Ryan are like, okay, this is our people. And it's like, no, this is so bad. This is so wrong.
They really caught me by surprise with him getting Ryan. And Ryan actually accepting him as his dad now.
I mean, honestly, I think things would have been different if
Butcher didn't do what he did.
Yeah. If Butcher hadn't been such a dick to him prior and telling him off, basically, to try and push him away to keep him safe. Like Butcher basically, it's a prime example of you made your bed, now you got to lie in it. Butcher pushed everyone away and pushed everybody into the positions they were for this finale and where they're going forward. Because even like Frenchie's like, this is a democracy now. Like, I'm done taking orders. We're done with this.
Yeah.
This is how we're running things. And a lot of it is Butcher's own fault.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting dynamic to see come the next season. But another show that honestly, obviously they don't push the envelope like the boys did, but they definitely went further in depth with some different aspects. Like the boys is Umbrella Academy. I saw they seemed a little more grown up this season, tackling more bigger issues. They brought in a little more of a gory element to some of the scenes.
Yeah.
Really kind of coming into their own this season. I mean, I always thought the Umbrella Academy was great, but I think they really kind of picked up a new pace on this season. It was amazing.
I think this season might be their best season yet. And it was a lot of fun. Umbrella Academy's always been fun though. Like there's a lot of musical numbers and like dance scenes and stuff like that. Somebody's always singing every season. It's a really fun show. But like I loved them changing you know, Vanya being transgender as, you know, to help and match with Elliot Page and that journey. And it didn't seem to take away from the show. It didn't change the dynamic at all. The character is still the same. I loved what they did with Allison's character this season. I absolutely
Hated
loved her.
I hated her, but she was
Yeah,
great. But I hated her.
she's so good. And like even some of the moments, it makes sense. I loved when they're at the wedding and you know Victor tries to apologize and Allison's like, I don't care, I'm done meeting you halfway. You wanted us to be close, we got there, and then you fucked it up. And you know, and Victor's like, is this really how you want to end things? Don't worry, I'll sleep fine tonight. And I was just like just like Jensen Ackles, great at telling somebody off. Even like prior when they were at the Sparrow Academy and she used her powers to shut Victor up, and was the moment that even everybody in the room was like, whoa, we should have left you in the basement. It was like, Allison, calm down. Like, this is enough. But like she's been through a lot, and I'd say she's been through a lot more just emotionally than maybe some of the other members of the family have been.
I mean, give or take. I mean, all of them have been put through freaking like hell. Especially, but I do think when you want to say if you're going to compare it all, her and Victor went through the most.
I think that's
she lost her boyfriend, husband, whatever. I forget what his name was, but back when they went back in time, and she lost her daughter. You know, she hadn't seen her in years. You know, time is always really tricky in that show. Victor thought she fell in love with somebody, and then he helped her to cause the end of the world, and then she finally tried to come to her own and found the girl. When she went back in time, she lost her
because they went back,
and then she found
to the future.
Yeah, that she found the kid that she thought was like kind of one of her own, lost him. You know, she ended the world twice. You know, like there's
I think a lot
that she
of
went
it,
through as well. So I think it's just surprising just to see how both of them came to cope with what happened to them.
And I think the problem is that it was just the fact that Victor was hiding things from Allison. Like Allison said, like we were close, we got there. You know, we helped each other. They were on they were on the same page. They were communicating, but it was the lying about Harlan, like because essentially Harlan's the reason that the Kugel Blitz even existed, because he's the one who messed it up. And I don't think it's less of, you know, even when Victor's like, you know, did killing Harlan bring back your family? Did it bring back your daughter? And like that's not the point. The point is everybody was telling Allison like, oh yeah, that sucks, but you know, get over it. We have to save the world. but everybody else was wrapped up in their own shit and like didn't care. It seemed like, so
Yeah.
Allison was like, oh, I'm supposed to get over it, but we got to help everybody else, and everybody else's shit matters. So I think Allison's anger it's justified. I think it is. But I do also think in the finale, she has that realization of, maybe I went too far. I mean, you made a deal with Reginald. You've gone too far.
Yeah, and I loved a lot of the characterization this season. Though I loved how they pushed each character individually. Um, I think the biggest one we already mentioned was Victor.
Yep.
Seeing her transformation, then seeing how the family reacted to it, but also not. I mean, you saw like Luther, how he reacted. Should we throw her a party? Like I think I want him to feel loved and accepted. And Diego's like, Luther wants to start you a stupid party at the end of the world. He wants
You
to make sure
feel
you feel
loved?
loved and accepted. Do you feel
Yeah.
loved?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, let's fucking move on. So just like
Can we get back to saving the world?
yeah, seeing the whole family dynamic, and then you see Luther ask him to be his best man, which I think is also a big step for him as well. So
And
I think there's a lot there for Victor, and I thought it was really great.
I agree, and I think even that from the best man scene going into the bachelor party, when he asked Victor, "Oh, will you be my best man?" and Ben's like, "What's going on?" "Oh, nothing, nothing." And they cut Ben out. I loved Ben this season.
Yeah.
It was fun to see a lot more of him and not just, oh, because Klaus is seeing ghosts. Klaus was awesome this season. All of his scenes with
He's always awesome. He's always
that's
the
true.
best character on the
That's
show.
true. One thing that disappointed me was Stan not actually being Diego and Lila's son.
Oh, I loved Stan and Diego this season. The dynamic starting off is just fucking get away from me, kid, and then actually kind of seeming like they had a father son bond.
Yeah, and
Um,
I like the scene where Diego pawns him off to Klaus. You're gonna hang out with your Uncle Klaus and whatever, and you're gonna clean all of these rooms. And then like when they're talking, like Klaus and Stan have this like understanding they're like the same. And then he's like trying to pickpocket everything, and Klaus catches him at the end and like, nope, everything back.
all right, you can have one thing.
You can keep the panties. It was a really fun season, and there is some seriousness there. There's a lot there. Even the moments between Lila and Diego. Allison's whole storyline this season was deep, and I think it's a really good example of how you can make a fun show, but still, tell a really good story and send a message. And like this stuff, Matt, like it's trauma, and it's there's a lot there. There's so much to unpack with each of these characters. Like,
oh yeah, they're all just so fucked up at this point. Like there's no coming back to that. But it's the fact that they all accepted it. They're like, I mean, they said it because the Sparrow Academy was just like, what is wrong with you guys? Like the entire first half of the season, Sparrow Academy is just like, like what is wrong with you guys? And like, we're messed up. Like, yeah, I mean, like, there's nothing good about us at all, actually, but we're a family.
And it was great. I mean, you get those moments where they are fighting or whatever, and then like at the wedding they all come together, and even with Ben, and it was nice. I mean, they were all drunk, but it was such a fun moment of having them all together. And even like when Reginald shows up and they're all like talking shit, like, what is he doing here? Who invited him? He better not sit at my table. Like,
yeah. And then you get Lila, who's just like, you're gonna introduce me to your dad. Just, her the one to break the ice. I thought was really cool.
It was awesome. I don't really have any complaints about it. Like it's such a good show. I will say each season ends on a cliffhanger.
It's so annoying. It's so annoying.
Every season does it. I don't really know where we go from here. I don't know what happens next.
I don't know. They're all depowered. we're back. I mean, because we started out with fucking 13, 13 people. And now we have the original. They killed off all of Sparrow Academy except for Ben and Luther's wife. Um, so then we got the original 7 back. And then we get Luther has his girl and then Lila, but then they're all depowered. So, and then they're in this world where their dad's wife is alive again. I
Right.
think there's going to be a lot more to unpack, I think, with Luther because there's the scene where they show, oh, well, you don't go to the dark side of the moon. The reason you don't go is because he keeps his wife
He's
on the
keeping her
dark
there.
side of the moon. But that's the reason that he sent him there. And you saw us in season 1, he was just wondering, what was my purpose for being on the moon? You just didn't like me and you sent me off because I was an abomination. But it was like, no, you're the only person I trusted
You were
to
protecting the most important thing in the universe, is
yeah,
what he
which
tells him.
but he still doesn't know that still. He
Right.
still doesn't know what it was, and I think now that she's back, and she's there, and you see that there's this whole different dynamic to whatever world they're in now. I have no idea what the hell happened after the Kugel Blitz. So yeah, I think it's gonna be very interesting to see.
It is interesting, and I think she's going to play a very important part in the story going forward. In back when we first saw Abigail in the flashback with Reginald when he was on his home planet and she died, this like gold dust, came off after she died. And then in this season, at the beginning, we know all of the women got pregnant in a matter of seconds. The
Mhm.
beginning of the day they weren't, and then they were giving birth by that night. And we actually see that same gold dust flowing through the train that went into Ben's mom, and she then all of a sudden she was pregnant. So, you know, who is Reginald's wife? Who is Abigail Hargreaves? How powerful is she? And if she dies, that power get released. So can she give the kids their powers back? And even in this next season, are we going to see more people that were, you know, born with powers like the other people that would have? I have no reason to believe that the other sparrows aren't around somewhere in this new world.
No, yeah, they could be. They definitely could be, and I don't know if it's ever gonna come into play, but there's still 1 or 2 kids that were born with powers that we still
No,
have
there
not
was
seen.
87 kids born that day.
Oh, there's 87.
Yeah,
So there's still a lot of kids.
there's still a lot. Yeah. Um, and he only because he was only able to adopt 7. He went around and he was only able to get 7 of them, and then obviously a different another 6 of them when he
Another
changed
6 of them,
timelines
yeah. And then we know Lila is one of them
is
as
one of them as
well.
well. Yep. So, but there's still that still leaves a whole lot of like other people you could explore and other characters um, to introduce and play around with.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of places the show can go, and honestly, I feel like this show is so underrated, so underly talked about. Um, just I don't know if I'm not saying like it's not a big show, like it comes out on Netflix, it's on the front page for a week or two, but I don't really know anybody else that watches Umbrella Academy, and it doesn't get talked about. I mean, you saw they dropped Umbrella Academy and Stranger Things in a short time span of each other, so it
Yep.
got very overshadowed because who really cares about Umbrella Academy when
I mean, it
possibly the biggest
was
show in the world is out.
it was
uh
dropped in between uh, the
the
first
part
half
one and two,
and
yeah.
part 1 and 2. Yeah, I will say, segueing us into Umbrella Academy not being talked about enough, and it should be a show that everybody would assume is going to be the talk, and then just really isn't. Is Miss Marvel, which, considering it's an MCU project, it's the thing that everybody's going to be talking about this, and not really.
No, and I feel like I think it could be a realization with Marvel, or a realization that people are having with Marvel, where I feel like I'm not hearing about things that they're putting out as much as I used to, especially the shows. Um, I mean, I know we were already on hiatus when Moon Knight came out, but I was very greatly disappointed with Moon Knight. Miss Marvel
Very.
is actually pretty good so far, but I'm not getting away from the Marvel formula that I love because it brought me so many great things for the past 2 decades almost. And but it's just where, like, when am I gonna get something different? Um, and we're
I
just
think
still running with that, and I think
I think
everybody's realizing it, and nobody's talking about Marvel as much as they should because even
well, and I think the other thing is there's just so much content out now for Marvel that it's almost like you're not left to think about it. You're not it's you're not, they're not letting it sit with people and discuss it. It's yeah, this is the episode every week, and then this is the next movie, and it's like I didn't even get to process the show because now the movie's out, and before I can even process the movie and really like let it sink in and how much I liked it, whether it was good or bad, the next show is out,
yeah,
and
and the finale for Miss Marvel, uh, we're
is
recording this on Sunday. It's on Wednesday, um, and Thor: Love and Thunder just came out this past Thursday, Friday. So
yeah.
there's a lot happening with Marvel, and people are starting to pick and choose what they care about. And even, I mean, obviously it's opening weekend, but I feel like I'm hearing less about Thor: Love and Thunder than I thought I would have.
Yeah, and we can get into Thor: Love and Thunder, for next week with the finale of Miss Marvel. So we let more people catch up on that. But I agree, there's just not as much talk happening with them. And as with Miss Marvel, I think my biggest takeaway, I love the actress who's playing Kamala Khan. I
Oh,
She's
she's doing
fantastic,
great.
but fundamentally, they have changed so much of this character from the source. Where did they change Moon Knight? Yes, there were some changes to Moon Knight. I wish they hadn't made him, but essentially, it was the same character.
Same story. I wouldn't say it's the same
Yeah,
character. There's
but
so much from his character that I hated because they weren't true to who he was, and it wasn't for the better. Like it just was
yeah,
not for the better. It was to fit their script, and
to make a family-friendly Moon Knight, which shouldn't have been the case.
which shouldn't have been
And
the case.
with Miss Marvel, I feel like it's a testament to the actor. She has captured the personality of Kamala. This is like watching her on screen. I'm like, this is her. This is what I feel like. This was, what when I was reading, you know, Miss Marvel, when I was reading the Champions and everything. This is her. But they've changed so much about her power set and everything that I'm a little turned off and turned away from it all because it's like this is your chance. This was your opportunity, and we'll see what happens with the finale. But this was the place where you rebring in the Inhumans, especially because Black Bolt was in Doctor Strange too. This is your place to bring the Inhumans back into the fold and like start to reintroduce everything. And it's like you've just completely walked away from her origin, where her powers came from, and everything. And it's like, why? And it's not
Yeah,
even just the power change of her, like, okay, you wanted to change her powers to look more cosmic to match Miss Marvel and the rest of the Marvels, even though, spoiler alert, the Young Avengers are not carbon copies of the original Avengers. They just labeled themselves after the heroes that they looked up to. But even if you did make that change, you made her powers look more cosmic. They're brighter, they're colorful. She's not an Inhuman. You took away Terrigenesis. You took away the core fundamental thing that still made her related to Miss Marvel, because Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, Carol, she's running around with the Kree. Like that was your connection. You didn't need to change her power to look more bright and colorful. She's already connected because of the Kree.
yeah. It's just the way that they're handling a lot, and I just feel like they're going about everything in the show. I mean, the show's enjoyable. Don't get me wrong. What I don't think it lives up to Umbrella Academy or The Boys, which we said were also
Yeah.
two other um, superhero shows that came out all around the same time. Yeah, they're all running at the same time, and they're not owning up when Disney/Marvel is supposed to be the big superhero company. Uh, it's still enjoyable. I don't go into the show hating it. I watch it every Wednesday. I don't miss it, but I feel like they're missing on beats that they should be. And I think a lot of people are getting annoyed with, we know Disney bought other studios. We know one of those studios is Fox. We know like all these things that should be brought in already.
Yep.
And every movie that's coming out, oh, this is gonna happen. This is gonna happen. They're bringing this person in. The nothing.
Yep.
We have nothing, and I think people are kind of getting tired of the teases and all this because then I'm guessing they're gonna wait for the next Avengers movie. They're gonna do whatever the next big event is gonna bring in everybody, but it doesn't have to be that way. There's subtle things you can do to bring in all the characters that everybody's been talking about for God. I don't even know how long it's been since they bought Fox now.
It's been a few years,
It's
and
been a few years.
even then, I am sick of the teases too, and it's like I shouldn't have to, wait to see, oh, is this going to be where we have a cameo for the X-Men or whatever. It wasn't always like that. It wasn't all like Marvel wasn't about the cameos. It was, this is an Iron Man movie, so watch it because it's Iron Man. This is Captain America. This is Guardians, whatever. And like, yeah, there's little things here and there, but they were small little things in the background. Like, oh, did you notice, that item that was on the shelf? It wasn't like, oh, that's Black Bolt. Oh, that's Professor X, and whatever. It wasn't waiting for, a whole new character or a whole thing to be referenced or brought um, in somebody else's movie.
Yeah, I just feel like they're going for the cash grabs, uh,
Yeah.
which is just their whole big thing now, and I just feel like it's not working the way that it used to. The same formula will only work for so long when you've done so much content in the amount of time, So we've seen it over and over again, and we don't get a break from it. Um,
Yeah.
it's just one thing, then the next, and the next, and the next. So I mean, we had Moon Knight, we had Homecoming was kind of last year leading into this year. Multiverse, we've had Miss Marvel, Thor
Yep.
Love and Thunder, just everything so far. And
Yeah. And
we haven't had a break from it. And everybody's just waiting on cash grabs. And I just feel like that's why it's not working. And that's why we're getting uh, shows that we like more and things that we like more. I mean, we said it
yeah.
before. When it comes to shows, Umbrella Academy and The Boys are better than I think any show that Disney has put out.
Plus, yeah. And I
Uh,
think the other thing is that they're different. Like, I love The Boys and I love Umbrella Academy, and I love them for different reasons because they're totally different. They're not the same. Yeah, they're both superhero shows. They're both comic book shows, but they're totally different. And I like that. I like watching things that are different. I don't want to watch the same thing over and over again.
yeah, and I
Um,
think that's really just what Disney needs to learn. I mean, we've been seeing it this whole time. I mean, again, we had within the past 6 7 months, we've had three major movies with Love and Thunder, Multiverse, and Spider Man, and the Batman still takes the cake. I mean,
yep.
there's no way around it. And with all the shows, just Prime Video, which shouldn't be able to hold a finger to you guys, and Netflix, who is taking a very, very underread comic, like this isn't Marvel from the Umbrella, like this is the Umbrella Academy. So, they're taking these people and they're putting them on a pedestal and they're whooping your ass, which
Yeah.
there just has to be change. At the end of
I
the day, there
think
just has to be change.
I think Disney is having a lot of fatigue right now, and we're not seeing it just in Marvel. I think it's been happening in Star Wars already, and I think it's continuing to happen now, even with a show like Obi-Wan that should have been, in my opinion, bigger. Not in terms of like the actual show itself, but bigger in terms of people talking about it and um, continuing to talk about it and the love for it. It should have been bigger. It should have been higher, and I just don't think it met those expectations.
No, I mean, the concept for Obi-Wan was cool. It
Yep.
was cool to see, you know, a lot of those older characters like Luke's uncle. You see young Leia, who like her family, everything. You get the Inquisitors, and you know that's the time when Vader is coming, and uh, so it was a great time period to make a show. I think there was a lot of potential there, and I think they just went the wrong route with it. They did a very slow build to a great ending, but not worth it almost.
I know a lot of
Because
people were bored with the first after the first couple episodes, and it turned people away from watching the ending, which it is unfortunate because of how good the ending is. Um, and I do think there are some things Star Wars fans are particularly toxic, especially when it comes to new content in the Star Wars universe. I mean, the fans were like that even when George Lucas was still doing it. The toxicity that surrounded the prequel films at first to now people look back and love the prequel films. Um, so I do think that everything in the Star Wars universe, when it comes to new content, takes time for people to appreciate. Um, I like the characters. The actress who played young Leia was great. I think she was, really funny, and I think she really captured, Leia's essence. Um, a lot of people hated on Reva, but I think the character worked, and I enjoyed that storyline that they did, and how they tied it back into Anakin and the younglings and everything. Um, I will say, anytime we get a flashback in Star Wars to Order 66, it breaks my heart. Um, it's just like, again, really, this I have to watch them kill all the Jedi. Damn stormtroopers, clone troopers. Um, but the biggest takeaway I think from the show is 100% Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan.
oh yeah,
He's
I mean,
he's great. Um, Hayden Christensen, seeing him back on screen as Anakin, like, it just, for those reasons alone, it kept me watching, and also seeing Vader as Vader and coming in and reminding you as to why he was the most feared man in the galaxy. Um, all of those moments, and uh, the little cameos, the little teases, the small moments were great in the finale. Getting Liam Neeson for just a split second, again, as Qui-Gon is just
Qui-Gon. Yep.
amazing. Like those, it was small. It wasn't a huge thing, and sometimes the subtlety, works better than a big spectacle. Um, but yeah, I think it was a slow build, like you said, and it turned people off from a great finale.
Yeah, and I honestly, uh, I aside from I mean this is a while ago, but aside from like the last movie I did, I think Star Wars has been on a good track. I mean, I know we've talked about Solo before, that being great. The Mandalorian, anytime that comes out, people are really hyped for the Mandalorian. Um, and I just feel like this show might have been a little bit of a letdown, but I still think Star Wars coming out of Disney has been really good.
I
I,
think I think where Star Wars, especially from Disney, I think where it's been the best and where it shined has been the stuff that is away from the Skywalkers and outside of the Skywalker um, family. Uh,
yeah,
and I know Rogue One is set in between everything and it's still connected, but none of those
amazing.
characters are, you know, a, Han Solo or related to Han Solo or related to the Skywalkers or anything. And yeah, Vader's in it and everything, but they're supplementary. They're additions to the rest of the cast,
Yeah,
which are
they
all
just they
new.
just show you where it ties in, but
Exactly. And I think Rogue One is one of the best. I think it is the best thing that Disney has put out for Star Wars.
I might argue that's the best thing in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
not it's not a debate I want to bring up because that'll just get me screamed at. But I just cinematically I think it's the best thing that Star Wars has put out was Rogue One.
Yep.
Um, and again, they haven't been doing bad on the show circuit either. Mandalorian has been an
And
amazing show.
and I think that's another one. The Mandalorian is great, and it's new characters, and again, you see where it's connected. You get those other characters in there, um, as far as showing you where in the universe it takes place and everything. But it still stands on its own.
Yeah, so I think Disney has been doing a good job with Star Wars. I think honestly, I think they might have been doing a little better currently than they are with Marvel, but again, doing all the standalone stuff, I think is really helping them. Uh, but I mean, the show that everybody's been talking about isn't Obi-Wan. It's not Umbrella Academy. It's not The Boys. It's not Miss Marvel. It's Stranger Things. I mean, this is coming out to be like one of the biggest shows I've ever seen. Honestly, I don't remember seeing this much chatter for a show like I'm seeing this one.
And it's understandable. Uh, the fact that this is the most talked about show right now. I find myself still talking about it, and I can't stop thinking about that finale. But Stranger Things this season, as an entirety, is one of the best seasons of a show I have ever seen on TV. The editing, the acting, the soundtrack, just everything to it like comes together, and it feels like each episode is a movie I'm watching in just a series of movies, especially that last episode. It's 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it was insane. I know we set. I mean, from the jump, Stranger Things was an amazing show, and these kids were so young when they started the roles. And we said it. We said these are all going to be big names. When they
Yep.
grow up, they're all going to be big names. I mean, we already see it with Finn and Millie, and I think we'll probably get it with Noah, and I don't remember all of their actual names, but I think we're gonna get it with all of them eventually too, because they are so good. I mean,
Yeah.
Noah, who is Will, had some really powerful scenes. You see him crying a lot. We're getting kind of hints to why. I mean, the running theory right now is that Will is gay. Um,
Yeah.
and you see, he's also really tortured as well from his time in the Upside Down. I mean, he spent more time in the Upside Down than anybody that wasn't Vecna. So you see that he's a tortured soul, and you get a really powerful performance from him throughout. I mean, when he has that talk uh, with Finn, and he's like, you're the glue, like you hold everybody together, like, and he's talking about Elle, but at the same time he's talking about himself. He's like, you hold me together. He's
Yeah.
like, and you see him like breaking down in tears. And then I love the scene with his brother after that as well, where
And
he's like, we
it's
don't talk, like you shoved a leg, like he said, you shoved that Lego head up your nose, and you used to come to me when something was wrong, and like I feel like now that things are serious, you don't come to me, and it's cool because you haven't really seen them bond throughout the show. I mean, and
yeah,
maybe in the
and he
beginning of
even
season 2 you see it, but then
he
he kind of
jokes
veers
and tells
off.
him, he jokes around and tells him like, oh, it's you've been stoned
Yeah.
like this last year or whatever. Like Jonathan acknowledges, he goes, yeah, that's my fault. And you're right, you do see that bond. I think it again, this is another show that the writing is so good, because when he's having that moment with Mike in the back of the van where he's telling him, and Mike is looking at it like, oh, yeah, you understand. Yeah, like I love Elle and blah, blah, blah. But like, obviously, Will is talking about more than just that. And they're in a van, so there's no way that Argyle and Jonathan didn't hear them. But
Mm.
you get the recognition when Jonathan looks in the rearview mirror, and he Mike doesn't notice that Will is looking out the window and
He's
he's
crying.
crying,
Yeah.
but Jonathan does. And then so I love that scene in the pizza shop where Jonathan brings up him sticking the Lego up his nose and whatever, and you know talks about, we haven't been as close as we used to be, and I miss that. And uh I think it's such a great moment. I mean, the season is full of those moments, though. It's full of all of these great moments, and the writing is just so good. The direction, and starting like just from the top of the season, them being at school, I was so happy when Elle busted that girl's head open with the roller skate, I was cheering at the TV because she deserved it. Um,
Yeah.
like Elle's been through a lot. I don't I don't want anybody messing with Elle. She's been through enough, especially when she was then trying to come for Hopper, and it's like, we ain't gonna go after the man who saved Hawkins. Like,
Yeah.
uh, and going from that, everybody's separated, everybody's all over the place. Um, a couple
Yeah,
new
we have
characters.
3 different storylines going at the same
Yeah,
time, and it still felt so coherent. And not only are there different storylines, they're obviously related because they all come to the same thing at the end,
yep,
but they're in different parts of the country, and one of them isn't even in the country. They're in Russia. Like,
yeah,
so I mean, and they do a great job of focusing on each one of those 3 groups and still bringing all of their stories to the table and making them powerful. I mean, we just talked about it. I mean, you have all of the back and forth when it comes to Elle and Will and Mike, and you have those 3 and their whole dynamic going around there on one side, and then you have all of the other kids and the older people like Steve and Eddie and all of them just fighting to keep Max alive and figuring out what's happening in Hawkins. Um, just to go to Russia and you see just Joyce just trying to get Hopper.
yep.
Um, so it just they did a really good job of pushing all of those stories. Uh, and it came together beautifully in the end to where they're all helping each other from different parts and none of them really know it. I mean, the only
Yeah,
ones that maybe had a clue was Max and Elle. uh, but you have uh, Steve and all the older guys just fighting in the upside down trying to get Vecna, uh, while Max is trying to bait him, and then you have Elle from across the country going into Max's mind trying to defeat Vecna on the mental
and
scale.
with that, can we just take a step back to like prior to that finale, which is such a huge episode, but Max this season,
Amazing. She's
amazing.
one of my favorite characters in the season. They did a great job with her. Same thing again, we knew from the start that characters like Mike and Elle, they're at like the actors that played them were going to grow to be big stars. And I think every season, I think like in season 2, we got kind of Lucas, he started to come out a little more, as well
Yep.
as I always forget his name because I always want to call him Toothless. How they make fun
Oh,
of him in the
Dustin.
first season, Dustin. Dustin and Lucas start to come out a little more in the next seasons. You get Steve and all them. I think this season it was really Will and Max that
Yeah.
came out and impressed me with their performances.
And I think that episode with Max when she writes the letters and then she goes
Ah,
to the cemetery and even and I know Billy's dead, but like them bringing back Billy for those moments, where she's being haunted and like she's at the cemetery and Billy's like, "You wanted me dead." Like those moments were so good and um
and they tie him in because even Vecna says I wanted him to die. I used to pray at night that something would happen to him, that he'd
yep.
drive too fast and he'd crash. And she's like, and
And I
now
think that's why I didn't
now
move at the
now I
mall.
pray to
Yeah.
now I pray to die. Like now I don't want to be here because I feel like it's my fault. I always wanted it to happen. Now that it did, I miss my brother.
Yep.
Just
Yeah, and it's she's so good. She does such an amazing job playing all of that emotion and being trapped and pulled into the upside down and you know it, I feel like if it had happened to one of the boys in the group, it would have been a whole different thing, but it goes to speak to show how strong Max is as a person. Um you know, she's like you said, even with Will, like she's been through so much. um
yeah, I mean, you see when she first shows up, she distanced herself from everybody. She's not dating Lucas anymore. She just
yep,
is by herself all the time, and because she's tortured. She because with all of them, they all had good lives before the upside down, before all of that. Max never had a good life. She was just everyday kid that was in the bad situation.
Yep.
And then it just keeps getting worse for her because now she's with the rest of them, and now she's the fate of the world's on her shoulders. So
Yeah. I think this season um, does a great job. Every season introduces new characters, and Stranger Things does the same thing every season. It introduces a character you love, and you'll say goodbye to them by the end of it. They did it in season 2 with Bob, um, and they did it in season 3 with Alexi, and they did it again with Eddie in this season. I loved Eddie. Um, on the flip side, they did create a character this season that I absolutely despised and cheered when they died at the end, and that was Jason.
oh my god, fuck that guy. I mean,
I hated him.
great
Oh
job
yeah,
of being someone to hate.
yeah.
But oh my god, he was such a prick. I loved. There was a very powerful scene in the finale, and that was the scene when Eddie is on the bus or on the top of the
Yep.
trailer. He's on top of the trailer playing the guitar, and they have this great one. They have Metallica blasting on the roof of something in this dark realm, which is just perfect. Let's just
Yep.
say that is
Yeah.
fucking perfect.
Well,
Like,
even Eddie says when he grabs the guitar, it's like it's almost like she was made for another world, and like
yeah,
grabs it like it's so great.
yeah, and so that was, and then just they have the song playing, and obviously you think all of them are like about to just fucking die at this point. They have this great montage going of them overcoming, and this great montage of them just fighting back from everything. And I thought that was
Well, but
great.
it's funny because it's almost like they're fighting back, and then immediately after Vecna realizes they're there, because then like Erica's like signaling them, they go in and they're sneaking around, and then the Jason shows up and they
Yeah,
tackle Erica, and it's like everything just went to shit. Like you had this moment where Eddie was playing, and you're like, this is amazing, this is so dope, and then it just all falls apart. Nancy, Steve, and Robin are like now pinned to the wall, and but like just prior, Elle had gotten into Max's mind. Elle was like throwing Vecna around, and then all of a sudden, Elle's stuck to the wall, and Vecna's about to take Max, and it's like how quickly everything just collapses.
yeah, and I love again the scene of just that's why I brought that up. I love Lucas kind of coming into his own and fighting against Jason,
Yeah,
because he goes in there. I mean, he
too
goes in there
little,
with a
too late.
gun. Yeah, he goes in there with a gun and just something catches his attention and he fights him, which is, I mean, it might sound like stupid because some of them are fighting much bigger threats, but this is the little geeky freshman taking on the big bad all athlete senior in high school.
Jock, yeah.
I mean, there's no like better story than that. I mean, imagine when you're a freshman in high school. I mean, those seniors look like freaking giants to you. Like they were untouchable. So he like came to his own just fighting him. And even then, even though he's not Vecna or some like dimensional being, that's a big moment for him.
Yeah. I I will say, you know, I'll admit it, this season made me cry. The finale made me cry. Um, and it's the moment it was the moment with Max, because Elle breaks out. She hears Mike talking to her, whatever, and she has the real, and it's right before Lucas starts to fight back against Jason and win that fight. Everybody's losing, and then Elle comes off the thing, throws Vecna against the wall. All of a sudden, Nancy, Steve, and Robin are throwing the Molotovs at him, and Nancy, badass with her shotgun, just fucking
yeah.
blasting them. Lucas catches Max after knocking out Jason, and you think like, oh my god, like yeah, you saw Max's legs get twisted, but like she collapsed, it didn't finish. So you think like, okay, we won.
I know. I thought that was crazy enough on its own because that the scene was powerful before she died.
Yeah,
For the minute that she died, but because you see her getting taken up in the air, you think it's over, and then you see it's successful, but dude, her leg is bent one way, her arms are bent behind
yep.
her eyes were already in the process of bleeding, so they're all white over, like she's already blind. And it was almost reminiscent of the scene in Infinity War with
with
Spider-Man,
Peter. Yeah.
where he's just like, I don't feel well, or whatever. But then she's, I can't see. I can't see. So like, I'm like, oh my God. Like, even if if she lives through this, she's a potato. Like, this is sad. Like, just
And
that alone is sad.
it's a great comparison comparing it to that scene with Peter in Infinity War, because yeah, it's she even tells it, I don't want to die, to
Yeah.
Lucas, and you get that same thing from Peter, like, I don't want to go, and it's heartbreaking. She's, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. And he, like, Lucas is calling to Erica for help, and I really love the scene because what Lucas didn't see was he wasn't alone in the
Yeah.
Upside
Elle
Down.
was
Elle
like
was
right on
there,
his
and
shoulder.
like
Yeah.
that's the scene that broke me. Seeing like Elle and Lucas sit there crying as Max died, and I was just like I couldn't keep it together. It such a heartbreaking moment where it's like we won, but at what cost?
Yeah. And it was crazy to me, was just, again, it's that juxtaposition. Again, Max was so good this season.
Yep.
I have to find out who plays her, which I've seen her in other things too.
She was in
She
Fear Street that
Fear
came out.
Street, yeah,
Was
she
that
was
the
in
end
that.
of
She did a
last
really
year
good
or
job.
early
Yeah,
this year? Yep.
it was around Halloween time of last year, I
Yeah,
believe.
and she was great in that.
She was amazing. Because then you get that juxtaposition where, again, the episodes before and even earlier than that, I don't think I deserve to be here. I don't want to be here. I want to die. And when she's on her deathbed, I don't want to die. I want to be here. I want to be with you. Like, just all of that, and then you see her go, and you're like,
Well,
fuck,
and even in her
now.
mind, fighting against Vecna, she has all these great memories, and like, and they keep showing the flashbacks, and those memories are the memories of the winter ball, her dancing with Lucas, the memories of her running around in the mall and stuff with Elle,
Yeah,
and running around, and like, and those are the moments. And you know, yeah, terrible things happen, but like there's still some good. And yeah, even just thinking about it, like, it's such a heartbreaking thing, and the writing is so good. And I also give props the soundtrack. I mean, they used the song a lot this season, but the Kate Bush song was
yeah.
just perfect for that moment. And
And it stormed the charts twice.
yeah, it's insane. It's
It's
breaking records now all of a sudden. Um, you know, how many years later? Came out in 85, so you're, yeah,
Yeah, and not only did it
20
climb to number one, it climbed to number one in and not in the first part, then climbed back to number one in the second part,
in the second
which
part.
is
Yeah.
unheard of.
Yep. And
Which shows the impact of the show. It shows how
oh,
big this show really is.
how much in the zeitgeist it is. Yeah, this is pop culture.
Yeah,
And it's crazy because it's referencing pop culture from the 80s, but like this is modern day pop culture. It's crazy just the cycle it's created. Um, on top of all of that, I have to give them props for retroactively creating the greatest villain, one of the greatest villains I've ever seen. Um, because you get storylines and shows and movies that, like, oh yeah, this was all caused by this guy, from the beginning it's always been this guy. And sometimes it works, but I feel like with this, it makes sense. All the hints to Vecna being the big bad from the beginning were there. They've always been there. So that reveal of, like, Elle sent him to the upside down, whatever, but revealing that even the mind flayer, even I believe that, yeah, Vecna's been in this world, whatever. The mind flayer is the big bad, though. The mind flayer controls the upside down. And in the finale, you find out, no, I made him. I created this. I
yeah,
molded this world. And it's like, so even the big bad that we thought was the big bad in season 3, and like that's the overarching villain, it's like, no, it's not. It's Vecna. It's this person and it's Elle's fault. It's like, you created me. So
yeah.
I think it's such a great villain. I can't wait to see where they go next for the final season. And I honestly, I don't know if I'm prepared for it. I don't know if I'm ready to say goodbye to this cast.
No, but I mean, I got to give props to the writers, producers, everybody for allowing what they're about to do. We talked about this about earlier this week, that knowing when to stop is a skill.
Yep.
As a writer, knowing this is enough is a real skill that most professionals still haven't mastered or come to terms with, because nobody wants to see their baby die.
Yeah.
When you make a script or when you direct something, that's your baby, and you don't want to, you don't want it to stop, especially when it's successful. You want to ride that wave as long as you can. And they already said, from the jump, they said, we planned everything
You can't
when
torture
we
these kids forever.
yeah, they planned everything from before they made the first season. They're like, we didn't write season one and then we got picked up for season two. No, we planned for 4 seasons. Granted, we overdid ourselves and we can't do 4 seasons, so we're giving you 5. But
Yep.
this is it. Like, we stuck to the script the entire time, and once we hit the end of our script, that's it. We're done. And it sucks because you don't want to see it stop, but then you're never gonna see it turn to Lost. You're never gonna
Yeah.
see it go bad. Which is great, because then it's gonna go down as one of the best shows in history.
I don't know if you had seen this. The finale was so big. The second part of Stranger Things was so big that the Duffer Brothers have opened up their own production studio. Upside Down Productions, I believe is what it's called. Um, they signed a deal with Netflix. They will be doing a Stranger Things spin-off, which I'm excited for, because if they're still doing it, the writing's going to be great. Who knows what part of the world or where we're going to go with that spin-off, you know? Um, it means we don't have to say goodbye to the world. We may say goodbye to some of these characters, but we're not done with, Hawkins.
Mm.
But yeah, that's exciting. They're also going to be tackling an adaptation of Death Note.
Hopefully this is a lot better.
Hopefully it sticks to the source
Yeah.
material, and
Yeah. The
but
only thing I want back is William Dafoe, but other than that,
Willem Dafoe was great as Ryuk, and that was the only good takeaway from that movie.
all right. There is at least one more thing we have to talk about, because we'd probably get crucified if we didn't. And it's Eddie. Eddie was a fan
Eddie's so
favorite
great.
this season. Eddie was the person that everybody's been talking about. I've been seeing fan art for Eddie all over TikTok. I've been seeing people talking about Eddie, people fanboying Eddie, just everything. He's like their new sensation right now. He's like, because before, I think the most popular character was Steve, and I think Steve probably still is.
And I
But
love
he's up
Steve.
there. He's with them now. Eddie,
And
then for one season, Eddie made it to a fan favorite, and I think he's gonna stay there.
I think, even the other moment in the finale that was heartbreaking was Eddie's death. And Stranger Things is good at it. They love introducing a character that you're gonna love and you're gonna fall in love with, and then just brutally murdering them. But that moment with Dustin that he had,
Oh
when he
yeah.
died, and like that moment where I didn't run away this time, and it just, it kills me inside. And Dustin sitting there, and it's crazy because for Dustin, like, Steve and Eddie are like his parental figures. They're like, they're the people that he looks up to. Those were the two guys that, Steve, prior to that, that's like his, father figure.
You see it in the previous season when Steve's working at the I think it's the hot dog place,
the ice cream place.
Yeah, ice cream place, the ice cream place, and like, buddy, you're back from camp, and and Robin's looking at them like, what is going on here? This kid's like,
they
10.
have such a brotherly bond too, because even in this season you see it with, like, when they go in the house, like, oh, we'll be together. Oh yeah, we'll be a team. Why can't I ever be partnered with somebody else? Oh, you don't like me? Like, there's that whole bond. But he has a similar bond with Eddie, like going into high school and them joining Hellfire and being part of D&D, and like Eddie telling him, like, you need to take care of those kids. You gotta help them. You lead Hellfire and everything. And Dustin gets that moment with Eddie's dad,
his uncle,
with his uncle, with Mr. Munson, and like, I was there, and he's a hero, and like trying to like give him that, like, I understand Eddie's not the person that they're trying to make him out to be, and I just want you to know that, it wasn't for nothing. He saved my life. I thought that was a great moment.
Yeah, and again, the fact that these kids, I mean, I can't even say they're really kids anymore. They're not much they're not much younger than me. That they're all of them are 18 at least. I think the youngest one is actually like Millie or Dustin are at like 18, and
Yep.
I think uh Will and Lucas are around like 20, 21 already. Um
Yep.
but like they're so good. You if you've never seen, again, they're not really children anymore, but they're still playing kids, and you've never seen child acting like this before. And Dustin puts on a great performance when he was sitting there with Eddie. You know, when Eddie cuts throat, he's like, Eddie, no, and like, you know, just him screaming, begging for him to come back, and then he takes it upon himself to go back in there, and he's just watching him get attacked, and he's running, he's trying to save him, just get there, and like
Yep.
then they have that moment together, and he delivers a great performance, and you think like that's probably it, but then he delivers another great performance talking to his uncle, just breaking down into tears because, you know, he's the only person that he probably could do that with because they're the only two that knew who Eddie was.
Yeah. It's Eddie was a great character. Dustin does such a good job on that scene of delivering the emotions that we're feeling watching it happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know he's limping because he twisted his ankle when he jumped back into the upside down to try and save him. Again, it's great writing, it's great acting, the editing, the cinematography of it, the soundtrack, everything comes together so well in this season. I mean, it always has in Stranger Things, but
Yeah.
it comes together so well here. You know, and there's the characters we haven't even talked about. Papa coming back was great. Everything that happened with Hopper and the new prison guard they introduced, and um, everything is it all together. It's so well rounded. Everything is just nothing is lacking, and nobody's lagging behind or holding it back. Even the one episode we get where we meet Dustin's girlfriend and Susie, you know, in her household, it's
Yeah.
so chaotic, and she's such a fun character. Argyle is another hilarious character they introduced this season. He's so funny. I've seen people try to, you know, people online aren't a huge fan, and it's like this is the funniest character in the show. He's such a stoner and he
Yeah.
nails it. Um,
Very stereotypical 80s stoner right there. Just
it's
and
so Cheech and
I
Chong.
I
It's
love when he goes to the other surfer boy pizza shop, and the other guy behind the
he's
counter
a
is exactly
stoner,
like him.
exactly the
Like
same,
the exact same, like they're
exactly
speaking
the
the
same.
same language. It's so
Yeah.
funny.
Um, but yeah, it's just amazing, and I have to say, between where we started with the show we started with this podcast with The Boys and Stranger Things, in my opinion, are two of the best shows that you can watch right now. That every season has
Just
managed to
get better.
top the last one, where it's like, let's get better, let's make it better. The first season of The Boys is great. Second season is even better. The third season was amazing. Stranger Things, same thing. Each season has gotten better. If you were to even rank them in like
They
ranking the
just be
seasons,
reverse order, yeah.
but and it's not like, oh well, that means season one is trash. No, season one is still
No,
amazing. It's
season
still
one
great.
took the world by storm when it came out.
Right. It's just this is good, and like we said, ending it on a high note and knowing when to say goodbye, and that's how you keep it as the greatest show of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I got the freaking Stranger Things season one post right there for those that can see that. I again, like as soon as that show came out, it took people by storm, you know.
Yeah.
So and it's still going, and it's just crazier every single season, every single episode. Everybody just gets more attached to these characters. I know going into the season, I was just like so worried. I was like, "Fuck, are they gonna like die? Like, who's gonna die?"
And I think you know when you've hit something great when you're doing spin-offs. We're getting a spin-off of Stranger Things now that was just announced. We are getting the spin-off of The Boys that's currently being filmed. It's called Varsity. It's
Mm.
The Boys' answer to the X-Men. Um,
Yeah, and then we
I
had
know we've
the
mentioned it
cart the
before.
animated version Diabolical for the boys. We had that.
Yep. So we are expanding on these worlds, and we're going to get more. I think that just goes to show how popular it is and how good it is. Um, I think we should leave everybody with the question I asked you the other day. um, since this whole episode has just been about TV. If you were teaching a writing course, what are the 5 shows that would be mandatory for your students to watch? And I think
it's a tough question.
it is a tough question. And I think I'd like to see what other people think. I'd love to hear what everybody has for their shows. Um, it's interesting. Don't just look at it as the best written show. Me and you had talked about,
what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, you pick almost want to teach a show that's like that went on the air and then nobody talked about it after it ended because it's like, well, what happened there? Because like The Walking Dead, what not to do with a show, or Game of Thrones, how not to end the show, or with Lost.
There's a lot of different aspects and takes on that. This will probably be a question that we'll post on our TikTok, which will give you guys more chances to actually interact with us, comment, duet, and all that stuff. But with that in mind, this is gonna wrap up episode 5 because we are way over time right now. So sorry for probably such a long episode. We'll see what it comes out to after the edit, but I'd already know this is going to be such a long episode. Sorry for that, but we had a lot to catch up on. And then, soon we'll be back on our regular pacing. We can keep our episodes a little more concise because we'll be on track for everything coming out. So we'll look forward to, being on here again next week and hoping we can deliver what we were before.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to be back. So being on schedule, there should be less to talk about every week.
Yeah. And like I said, we're going to try to get more interactive on other platforms, promoting ourselves a little more on Instagram, getting more interactive on TikTok, posting more videos there. Probably for the Miss Marvel finale. For those of you that like the Miss Marvel show, I think we're going to do a little TikTok about that. If we don't get to tackle some new movies, we'll do those on our TikTok. We know there's a lot of great movies out there, like Black Phone, Thor, Top Gun. If we don't get into them next episode, they'll definitely be on our TikTok sometime this week or next week. So stay tuned for all that. And we've had a lot of great questions come to mind that we're going to start posting there that you guys can interact with, like the one we just told you. So thank you for tuning in for the Beer and Skittles Depths of Pop Culture podcast, episode 5. And hope you guys tune in again next week.
Thank you.